servicing the three-way on an Etha3 M. First thing we need to do is remove the frame. So remove the two frame screws using a 1/8 hex key. Loosen those. Then remove them. Take out the two frame screws. And then from the rear, pull the frame away and unhook from the front of the body. Place the body to one side now. One thing we need to keep an eye on is this seal here in the top of the transfer block. So just make sure that's nicely clipped in place, or take it out and put it somewhere safe to one side. Then need to remove the grips. So pull out the tab, the back of the grips, lever off the grip from either side, lift off the rear section, take out the front section, unhooking from the top. So lift from the bottom, pull it down and forwards, it'll unhook from the top, place that to one side too. Then before we can get to the three-way, we need to take out the pin, this brass pin here. So it's larger on this side and smaller on this side, so push out from this side. Use a hex key to do that. Just pop the pin out, put that to one side. Now we can take out the transfer block, put that to one side. Inside here is a three-way. Easiest way to remove that is turn the frame upside down, tap it onto a surface, that will remove the three-way. Now place the frame to one side. So this is our three-way assembly. We have another gasket here, which matches the one, exactly the same as the one on top of the transfer block. So just take that out, place that down. Then we have the front and the rear QEV section. We'll do the front first, so use a adjustable spanner or some pliers just to slacken off the nut at the front and do the cap. Now you can sometimes do this with your fingers or use some pointy nose pliers. Just pull on the insert in the centre, wiggle and gently pull that out, and the pin will come out with it. Now I have a spacer inside here. Again, tap this down on the surface, should come out. So there's a spacer. That just leaves one more seal at the bottom of the hole here. We'll have to use something like a pick or a hex key. Just pop it into the centre there. You can just pull that out. So that's everything out from the front of the three-way. So what we're going to do, take out the pin. You can see we have another matching seal. These number 4 seals are both the same. We have a seal on the outside there as well. So those are the parts we have. Best thing to do is give all those parts a wipe down, a clean off the old grease, any dirt, paint, debris, whatever gets into the inside there. Give those pieces a wipe down. Then I find the easiest way to rebuild this is to build it all up outside of the three-way body and then slide it all in one go. So what I'm going to do here first of all is I'm going to put one of the seals back into the face there. I'm going to put a bit of grease on that. Then I'm going to take the pin, make sure that pin isn't bent. You'll see it's quite thin in the centre section. I'm going to put on the small area, the small diameter section, put some grease onto there. I'm going to push that in from the front and push it through the seal so it sticks through there. You then want to take the spacer, and when this assembly goes back in to the body, into the three-way body, the smaller diameter of the spacer wants to go into the three-way. So large diameter goes against the O-ring you've just been built into here. So we've got large diameter to large diameter on that little assembly there. And then finally what we're going to do is going to another small amount of grease. I'm going to work that into the last small 004 O-ring, and we can slide that onto the end of the pin or spool there. So now you have a small assembly with the spool, the outer cap, the spacer and the other small O-ring. That can now be slid all in one go, carefully back into three-way body. And all we have to do then, put the cap back on. It doesn't need to be attached overly tight. Finger tight will do, but if you want to, you can just gently nip that back into place. Don't crank it down, don't use excessive force. So that is the front of the three-way. That just leaves the QEV at the rear. Again, easy with some pointy nose pliers. Just pull out QEV cap and the diaphragm's inside there. There you go. Diaphragm just popped out. Doesn't need really anything on this if you just do want to apply a very light coating of grease. I mean, this is next to nothing in here. You can just give that a rub down with grease. Then it goes pointy end in first into the pocket. Just want to put that in with the pointy end first. Then we can just use the cap, push it into place. And that is the QEV and the rear, the three-way assembled. Now it's just a case of building it back into the frame. What's very important here when you put the three-way back into the frame is, number one, that the pin is pushed all the way in. The three-way pin or spool needs to be pushed all the way into the valve body, otherwise there is a good chance of bending and damaging the pin when you put it back into the frame. Second thing you want to do is the trigger pin, the pin that goes from the back of the trigger to the three-way. Ideally want to have that slid forward, so you can see through the window there. You want to just tip it, tap it, make sure the pin is protruding here and the head of the pin inside there is forward. Then very carefully slide the three-way back in and look through the window to make sure that the spool or pin isn't hitting the tail of the push pin here. Push that down into place. Okay. Finally, we have the joiner. You'll see in the joiner that the hole isn't in the center here. So the hole needs to be towards the bottom of the frame. You see here it's at the bottom, not the top, otherwise the pin won't go back through. So what we're going to do is put both the gaskets back in. So one in the bottom, one in the top. Push those into place, and then with the hole towards the bottom we're going to carefully slide that back into the frame and make sure that the gasket is engaged in the three-way valve. If you've got it all built correctly, you should be able to see straight through the pinhole here, be able to put the pin back in, and now the three-way assembly is reattached inside the frame. Okay, so finally, last thing to check, double check, always make sure the gasket is clipped in before you attach the frame back onto the body. So hook it on at the front, close the two parts together, make sure the gasket is in there. Two frame screws can go back in. Do them up nice and carefully. Again, none of these screws need to be over tightened. Just carefully nipped up into place, and then we can put the grips back on. Front section first, clip it in at the top, clip it in the top, push from the bottom, make sure the front section is seated Then the rear section goes in, top, rear first, push down, clipped over on both sides, push in the locking tab, that's the grips replaced, and that is servicing on an Etha3 M 3-way.